would like to support the channel. Also, you can do it by way of Patreon, Anchor, the clothing store, and also the shoe shop that is listed in the comment description below. And again, thank you to any and all of you guys who have been here to support this channel during the 2+ year period. I wouldn't be able to do what I do every single day without you.
Approve slave reparations to be paid to people who were never slaves, to be paid for by people who never owned slaves, in a state that never had slaves. That's like paying child support for a child you never had, to a woman you never
Here comes a new challenger.
Racism just flat out does not make sense in America because it's the sum total of propaganda. But white people aren't propagated for eugenics, ethnic cleansing, or even religious matters. They're propagated because capitalism doesn't work without slavery, and slavery does not work on the assembled and the enlightened. So all of our lives were over-propagated and undereducated. So as the largest voting demographic in America, we're perpetually voting against our own self-interest. And rather than using the resources available like technology, history, or even morality to enlighten us, we drink the Kool-Aid. We blame black people and immigrants for stealing jobs that couldn't support the American dream we've been sold. It's called a dream because you gotta be asleep to believe that. Here's some perspective for you. Peasants used to work 150 days out of the year and spend the other 215 doing all. Slaves used to get free food, housing, clothes, and health care. They found a way to work you harder than peasants and give you less benefits than slaves while eliminating the expense of food, housing, clothes, and health care for the slave master, but allowing him to sell you a substandard version of all of the above at an insane markup. You don't hate black people and immigrants. You hate the quality of life in America. They're just who your slave master told you to blame for it. But guess what? Now you're a slave too. Welcome to the revolution.
Now, you heard both Rob Schneider, and you were able to hear specifically what the woman after stated. So let's deal with both, right? Rob Schneider saying that California never had slaves, aka a free state, and what the woman after basically stated, how a lot of people refuse to actually use the technology that they have in order to educate themselves and find more information. So again, we're back with Gold Chains, which is the hidden history of slavery in California. They state this: the ACLU of Northern California today launched Gold Chains, the hidden history of slavery in California, a public education campaign that exposes chapters of California's history that may come to a surprise, if not an outright shock, to many people. Little known is the fact that while California entered the Union as a free state under the Compromise of 1850, slavery was rampant. In fact, local and state governments passed laws that made it perfectly legal for white settlers to hold black and native people in bondage, even children. This despite the fact that the state constitution banned slavery. The first California governor tried unsuccessfully to ban black people from the state. Through multimedia narrative, public records, news articles, and archival material, the campaign uncovers California's hidden history and its legacy in California's courts, culture, and science. Gold Chains examines the underbelly of popular narratives of California as the proverbial golden state of opportunity. It also exposes the roles of the courts, laws, and the tacit acceptance of white supremacy in sanctioned race-based violence and discrimination that continues into the present day in California. Gold Chains is a partnership between the ACLU and Northern California KQED, the California Historical Society, and the Equal Justice Society. Quote, confronting the misdeeds of our collective past enables us to secure a more just future for generations to come. Gold Chains reinforces the integrated advocacy that the ACLU of Northern California practices daily. Our efforts to take on critical issues and sometimes unpopular positions in order to advance civil rights and civil liberties exemplifies our commitment to equal justice for all. And that was stated by Candace Francis, who is the communications director for ACLU of Northern California. Gold Chains highlights California's slavery past, which often goes overlooked. It pushes California to become truly aware about the brutal treatment Black and Native people endured and how it shaped the California we know today. 2019 marks the 400th year since enslaved Africans arrived in Jamestown, Virginia, and were sold to colonists, beginning centuries of bondage and servitude. California and its own version of Black people as chattel labor in cotton fields stalked by an overseer. Like King Cotton, the commodity that drove the slave trade on Eastern Seaboard, the gold rush era in California during the 1800s led to the persistent dehumanization of Black people and simultaneously forced Native people off their remaining lands, destroying their ecosystem for generations to come. Quote, many people don't know that in 1852, California passed its own fugitive slave law, legalizing the forced deportation of Black Californians back to the South if a white person made a claim, true or not, that they were their property. These historical markers are omitted from state lore and school curricula, yet they offer critical, concrete examples of California's complicity in racial tyranny. And that was stated by Susan D. Anderson, who is the Director of Programming for the California Historical Society. The project lifts up the voices of courageous people who challenged their brutal treatment and demanded their civil rights. There are narratives about enslaved African American men and women who fought for their freedom in the courts, journalists, business people, and others in the Black community who joined forces to fight anti-Black laws, and about Native people who rebelled against their enslavement. The history of slaves in California predates statehood, with the incursion of Europeans in the 1700s who enslaved the native population, seized land, went after women, infested tribes with disease, and enforced Catholicism.
Another one.
I know this information is going to go against the narrative of America and whatnot, but let's just look at it, right? Queen Khalifa, the most commonly believed origin is from a mythical character, Queen Khalifa, created by Garcia Rodriguez de Montalvo, created in his romantic thriller of Esplendian, published in 1510. In this fictional tale, Queen Khalifa was an Amazon warrior queen who ruled over the island of California. And that's why I wanted to provide you guys with the map to the side. Is California named after Khalifa? She is the namesake of the California region, encompassing the United States of California and the Mexican states of Baja California and Baja California Sur. Depiction of Queen Khalifa at the California Capitol, painted by Lucille Lloyd in 1937. How did California get its name? Hale concluded that when Spanish explorers came upon Baja California Peninsula, they named it California, after the fictional island in de Montalvo's book, because the explorers thought the peninsula was an island east of the Indies, similar to the island described in de Montalvo's novel. So again, we do have information out there that can inform people, that can direct people to a better type of information so that people don't have to automatically stay ignorant. They don't have to directly stay within that echo chamber of wrong information. But at the same time, we all have to understand that it's a lot easier for a lot of people to stay ignorant. Because if they're ignorant, that's less that realistically they have to deal with, less that they have to take on, less responsibilities out there, right? Because for some people out there, more information makes a lot of people uncomfortable. They don't really know how to deal with everything that they are taking in. Some people will get a little bit antsy. Some people may get a little bit chaotic. Some people may just, act recklessly. So again, there's a lot of things. There's a lot of reasons as to why it is America is the way that it is. And as the lady before stated, that a lot of people are, in a sense, miseducated, misguided. And it's set up that way by the government, because I want people to understand at a moment in time, soon enough, you may see the collapse of the American dollar. And the greatest question is, who will the quote unquote American people decide to blame? Are they going to decide to blame the government for the reason that the American dollar is collapsing? Or will they decide to blame the black population, as which has always happened with a lot of negative things or downfalls that America has faced?